Let's talk about revenue. In order to truly track and understand revenue and customer acquisition, we need to first understand the top of funnel inputs, what is happening day in and day out before it even gets to the point of sale. That's the inputs, right? If we can understand that data and we can understand the actions of a sales rep equal what? So once we understand those actions, then we can also help the sales rep be more efficient. Then we can tell them and we can say, hey, here's what you were doing. Here's some suggestions that we have. And then by doing that, we have data to then give the leadership.
This is the Snowball Effect. You're listening to the Marketing Playbook series, presented by the Snowball Effect podcast. It's growth done right.
Hey, I'm Todd from Snowball, and welcome to the Snowball Effect. This is our Marketing Playbook series. And I'm really excited today to have Jess Reagan from Gamify. Welcome to the podcast, Jess. Good to see you.
Thank you so much for having me.
I want our audience to get to know you just a little bit, Jess. So tell us something a little bit interesting about you before I pick your brain about sales, about AI, about marketing, all that good stuff.
So first off, thanks for having me here. It's a pleasure. You have such a great friendly energy, and so it's fun to be around. So something interesting that a lot of people don't know about me is I'm a trained actor. In my early 20s, I moved to Hollywood, pursue acting and film. I grew up doing theater and singing and dancing and all that fun stuff. I ended up doing LA Comedy Connection, which is an improv troupe there. And so that's something interesting.
I love it. I have a rule for people that have been actors. That means that this is going to be audio only because I don't want to put my face up against yours on video. So I'm just telling you right now. Now, let's jump right in, Jess. And let me ask you a little bit about your journey. You go from acting to now you're a co-founder at Gamify. And so walk us through a little bit of that journey.
Sure. Yeah. When I was acting, I had already been in school. I'd gone to some college for international business and marketing and had already had a knack for sales and had a 1-year-old daughter at the time. And it just felt like this is going to be a roller coaster to raise a family in this environment. Early on, I just decided to go out and try my hand at knocking doors. I'm doing some summer sales. I had a lot of friends that were doing it. I knew that they had been successful. I naturally love people and interacting with human beings and finding out what makes them tick.
Did you start out in pest control and solar?
So my first year was in alarms and then into pest control. I moved into pest control for 7 years after that and just started to really develop my love for direct sales and for face-to-face marketing and for the opportunity to actually look a person in their eyes, get a feel for their energy. And acting in a lot of ways does reflect sales, not in a way that you're being fake, but in a way that you're reacting to someone and that you're often mirroring them. And so journey started.
Especially in the improv world where you're building off what they say and things like that.
One of the first rules in improv too is that you always say yes. And so sales, or else things just stop. If you can imagine like in an improv thing and somebody says, you're looking awfully fat and hairy today. And they're like, no, I'm not. It just stops.
The energy, the flow of what's going just comes to a screeching halt while you take it in a different direction.
Yeah, exactly. And so with sales, the same way is that often agreeing with a potential customer is the best way to move forward to get past smoke screens to help them feel heard. If you look at some of the best improv actors in the world on film or in movies, Jim Carrey's one that comes to mind, they knew their scripts inside and out. And so when you know the script, you know how to weave in and out of it. And so understanding what an actual pitch is, what you should be saying, and then tailoring that to each individual has followed me through my career.
I love that. The confidence of knowing the material, right? And knowing I can step away from it. I can jump into it whenever I need to, but I can still align myself with this customer and get in that yes frame of mind. I could totally see. So what got you from doing the direct sales yourself into the role that you're in now?
Yeah, so I built teams for almost 13 years, 14 years, and then eventually worked my way inside the building, like into a corporate position. In 2018, I found myself as a single full-time dad to 2-year-old twins. That took on this whole other dynamic where building teams outside on the doors became really difficult because these little girls needed me and they needed me to show up in a different way. I found that some of my talents through the years, which were recruiting, managing, culture building, all of that translated into more of a corporate position, first being director of recruiting, then a VP of sales, and eventually into an SVP of sales and sales performance at Lumia, which was a top 5 solar company. And there is where I started to learn all of these years of field sales and all of the history that I had behind me of understanding what works and what doesn't work. We started to build out some different tools. And so I started to realize, and I think Snowball works with Vivint and some other great companies. These companies are incredible and they have inside tools that nobody else has access to. And so they spend millions of dollars, they build these incredible tools, and nobody has access. And during my time there, I met the CEO of then early Gamify and Emily Applegarth. I met her. I was the decision maker. She came to me to pitch her product. And I loved her energy, her drive, her passion for her belief in what she was doing. And then I also saw an opportunity where it was like, there's this product for the field that everybody in the field needs, no matter where they're at in their journey. So if they're not a multi-billion or multi-million dollar company, maybe they're just scaling from a team of 5 reps up to 500. How did they get there without having $1 million of development funds? And so that's originally how we met. And so when I stepped away and had an opportunity to align with Gamify, I couldn't miss it. It was almost like you probably know this if you had these experiences, but it's almost like it's not a decision. Like and that's how I just knew when the opportunity was there that I had to take it.
That's fantastic. I totally understand that these are people and this is a product, this is a service that I want to align myself with. And it almost feels
Yeah.
like things have lined up to put you where you're at. So help us understand, for those out there that may not know who Gamify is, help us understand what it is that you do there. How do you help people out? Who's your perfect customer?
Yeah. Wow, those are really great questions. So
And
who
I
we
hit you with 3 of them all at once. So let's start out with the first
are.
one. What's Gamify?
Yeah. So Gamify it's a field sales tool. And so today, if you are in outside sales, field sales, face-to-face sales, we cater to the deskless workforce. And if you're familiar with, a lot of companies have inside sales, they have teams that are set up in a nice office. The software stack for inside sales teams is immense. And the field sales and the outside sales teams are very underserved. And so, what Gamify does is we offer them a mobile product where they can be in the field. They could be standing in a kitchen selling a chemical product. They could be standing at a front door, knocking the door and selling a home services product, solar, pest control, roofing, turf, all those home services. They could be going to an office building and selling furniture or paint. And so in these outside sales teams, they're generally trying to log this information in really clunky CRMs. And they just don't have something that's built for them in a mobile environment, like where if you're logging something, it should be really easy. And so Gamify addresses all of those issues by allowing them to record all of their top of funnel activities. So if you're managing a territory, you're dropping pins, you're canvassing, you're approaching businesses. We manage all of that top of funnel input. And then it acts as a command center. And this is what really sets us apart is that we help you track all of your front end input. So whether that can be phone calls, that could be door knocks, that could be conversations. And then we tie into your CRM. And so if you have Salesforce or HubSpot or any of those CRMs, we tie into that and we act as this command center. And so then the sales rep, setter closer models, all of that, they know what's happening on both ends. They know where the sale is at in the pipeline. They know when they're getting paid. And the reason for Gamify, for that name, is that we use gamification and engagement to make it really fun. And so then you take all of this data and all these KPIs and we're pulling it in and we're able to track it. And then you can build a game to be able to play in less than 3 minutes. And so if you've ever been out on the doors, the reps are struggling, you want to throw out an incentive, you can set up that game in a couple of minutes and launch it in Gamify.
That's fantastic. I just reminiscent to my wife and I walking the streets with Pokemon Go like a couple of idiots. So it feels like a much more productive use, application of something like that. But actually bringing the tools that SDRs, BDRs, internal teams have, making it something that these deskless workers, and I love that phrase. Your marketing team's got some amazing phrases as far as deskless workforce and restoring eye contact. The fact that you could arm them with these tools is one thing, but then actually make it engaging, make it fun, add in that gamification element. What a really good blend there. There's something else. As I've seen you at trade shows, you're out there we engage with a lot of the same customers. Who would you say is your perfect customer?
Yeah, today our ideal customer is a home services outside sales rep, a contractual 1099 worker. That is the perfect. And you could be any amount of reps or any amount of sales team. Generally, we're going to be working with 10 or more sales reps. And you are out approaching customers face to face or on a phone. We have a web version as well. And you are selling a home services product. We have pipeline management so you can see where the sales at. And so we actually have a lot of smaller teams that use us as a sales CRM. And so they don't even have to go and purchase big CRMs because they have all the data that they need within Gamify. And so that's our ideal customer: roofing, solar, pest control, turf, HVAC. The home services are top of the line right now.
So help me understand. You mentioned always being able to adapt. Jess, help me understand a little bit strategically on at Gamify to meet needs now, but then also to meet needs in the future. What kinds of things can you highlight there for us?
Yeah, things are moving so fast with AI and LLMs and everything that's happening there.
Yeah, big time.
And so we are no stranger to what we need to do to keep up with that. I would say, as far as what we're doing and where we're at, the difference that you're going to see in the next year or two in our field and within our competitors and just in this space in general is going to be AI, conversational learning, coaching, being able to help people make a sale. Gong, for example, for inside sales is a great tool. And we don't have that in the field. And so the evolution of this tool, where it's not a nice to have, it's a must have. And so what Gamify is building is we're building a must have tool in the field so that it's a companion. It's not something that you want to leave the house without. And what's cool is it's on your phone or your iPad. So you're not going to leave without it. Know those pain points intimately. Not only have I been in field sales for 20 years, I've sold every product you can think of, but I go out and I knock with our current customers. I am not somebody who's just 7 years ago, it was like this. No, I went out last week with one of our clients in Texas, 106 degrees, humidity. We're standing in a yard measuring some things. And I'm just observing, I'm watching, how is this individual using their iPad? How are they using their phone? How are they interacting with the customer? What tools do they have? What tools do they not have? We're listening. Like at Gamify, we are listening, we're watching, we're building a foundation of a product that is going to be able to scale massively.
Just looking into what it is that you do, I see this phrase a lot in your marketing material, but AI revenue intelligence. Help me understand what's going on there.
Yeah, let's talk about revenue. In order to truly track and understand revenue and to understand customer acquisition, we need to first understand the top of funnel inputs. What is happening day in and day out before it even gets to the point of sale? That's the inputs, right? If we can understand that data and we can understand the actions of a sales rep equal what? So once we understand those actions, then we can also help the sales rep be more efficient. then we can tell them and we can say, hey, here's what you were doing. Here's some suggestions that we have. And then by doing that, we have data to then give the leadership, right? Then we can say, hey, when your sales reps do this, these are the results that you get. And so then from the bottom up, we can teach each other along that stage of what everybody needs to do in their role in order to have better success, increase the margins, like just become more efficient with your revenue. That all encompasses the intelligence and eventually AI involved with that as well.
What I'm hearing is really intriguing to me because the rest of the sales world is getting all these AI tools, got all this robust tech stack, bringing that to them so they're not left behind, but giving them not just the tools, but then putting it in a way that they can interact with it nicely, but then connecting
Yeah.
that all the way to the decision makers internally and connecting those
Right.
efforts to results and revenue. I think is really thoughtful that at each touch point, you're giving them what they need with their role in the sales process. Here at Snowball, we spend a lot of energy and effort talking about nurturing customers, building customer advocates, getting reviews, getting referrals, and we automate that. But what do these sales reps do to actually nurture and grow some of those advocates for themselves? Anything
Mhm.
that you see in the field or that you've gleaned?
Yeah, great question. So the first thing that they need to do is set proper expectations. Most reps miss the most important part, which is setting proper expectations from the beginning. And the classic tale of under promise, over deliver, we've gotten away from that. And in reality, what our customers really want is the truth. They want to know if this installation is going to take 6 weeks, that I'm not telling them it's going to take two. And so it starts with the sales rep. It starts with setting proper expectations and then keeping your word and making sure that those expectations are met. And if they're not met, that you are communicating, that you're telling the customer that the timeline is off, or this has changed, or this product has been updated, and whatever that is, that you're in full communication, that you're not hiding. Customers really appreciate that communication, even when it's a hard conversation to have.
I love that, Jess, because we live in a world where everyone wants to be liked and go on social media. But more than being liked, you're spot on. Homeowners really need to trust this person. That's really what they crave. Is this person
Absolutely.
going to set realistic expectations? Tell me the truth. And then that second point, are they going to stay in contact with me?
Yeah.
So build up from there. What would you add to that?
Yeah, you just made me think of a quote that I don't know if I came up with it, but
Hey, any
I'll
anonymous
take
quotes on the internet, I take them as mine.
Jess Reagan,
Yeah.
Michael Scott.
Yeah.
Uh,
Exactly.
People buy from people they like. People refer who they trust.
I love that. That you're gonna see that in our next marketing campaign.
Once you have that foundation, if you don't have that foundation, there's no amount of tools that are going to help you. A tool, a software, it's not going to save you. If you do have that foundation, then having a tool like what you guys offer,
Mhm,
like a snowball, a follow-up
mhm.
protocol, getting up to that point of using a CRM, using a follow-up, using Excel, having some type of device where you are organized. What I generally see is it's a turn and burn kind of thing, right? Where it's a pillage and plunder. People go into these neighborhoods, they knock a ton of doors, they go into business offices, they out flyers, whatever they're doing. They get little bites or they get customers and then they don't do anything with it. And it blows my mind because number one, if they didn't buy that time, it's usually between the fifth and eighth touch that people even buy. And so having a follow-up protocol with them, whatever the protocol is, have one and be as organized with your referrals and your essentially your brand ambassadors, right? Or people really truly believe in you and your brand. Make sure that is as important as the sale. And if you do that, then 30-40% of your sales are going to end up coming from referrals, which means that you do one of two things. You either increase your volume a ton, whatever your product is, or you make your job a lot easier, right?
I think you've connected a dot here that's really critical, and it's being organized and having a system in place. My team gets sick of me saying this. I think it's from Atomic Habits. Like, we don't rise to our aspirations, but we settle to our systems when push comes
Yes.
to shove. And I love that. And with folks that are interacting with people all the time, their intention might be to be trustworthy and that they can be trusted with the process. But if they're not organized and they're a scattered mess, even though their intention is right, they just can't execute on that intention to be trustworthy. So having a system in place that makes it so that you follow through with what you say and connecting with them, I think is a critical piece that most lose there. And they lose that trust, not because the person's untrustworthy, but because that person's just scattered, busy, putting out 100 fires and never gets back to them, or just doesn't have a system in place to manage that relationship responsibly. You've been in sales for a long time, selling, knocking doors, and then you moved into leadership. I want to pick your brain here for a second about sales leadership, Jess. What qualities do you look for in sales leaders?
I always think in books, right? I
Mhm.
like to read a lot. Oftentimes answers come up in the forms of books, but there's a great book. You don't have to read it. You just have to read the cover.
Those are my favorite kind of
It's
books,
called
by the way.
Form. It's a great app. It's called The Speed of Trust. And this goes back to the customers as well, is I look for people who are trustworthy, who keep their word, and who show up in a way that is trustworthy. So that's one of the first things. And what does that look like? That looks like, again, that they are setting expectations for themselves and for their people. I'll give you an example. When I was leading teams on the doors, one of the first meetings that I would have is I would set expectations for, for what they should expect from me, and then what I should expect from them. And there's obviously there's a value exchange there. This is how much I get paid.
Wow, that's
This is when
radical transparency. I love that.
yeah, this is when I get paid. And then I would state, if you ever feel that I'm not living up to this compensation and that my value is not there for you, then you come talk to me and we'll negotiate, right? Like, we'll make sure that we're in a good spot. And so in myself and in my leaders, I love, you just brought up transparency, the ability to have a conversation and to be transparent and to not manipulate, to not gaslight, to not make them feel less than, to where, like I said, outside of hierarchy, that you feel like you're on this plane, that we're on the same level and that we're competing for the same thing. When I was at Vivint, I was there for 5 years, and almost all of those years, I had the top per rep rookie average on my team. And one of
Wait,
the
wait,
what
let me
isn't
double
I
click there. You mean the top rep? So that means the rookie reps on your team were outperforming any other rookies. Okay,
yeah,
perfect.
I attribute that to treating every recruit as if they are a leader. And so when people come in, the way that you treat them, the way that you share knowledge, the way that you train is that you are training that individual as if they are going to replace you. What does this person need? If this person is going to come in and they're going to replace me, yes, there is a scale, right? Like, where there's some baby steps if they're brand new, but treating them, meaning that you are expecting certain things of them that you would expect of a leader. I do this with my kids too, where they're 8-year-olds now, 8-year-old twins. If we cater to our kids and our salespeople and our reps, and we do everything for them, and we don't delegate, right? The art of delegation is one of the best skill sets that a leader can have. And it's not delegating so that you do less. I want to be very clear about that, because some leaders will delegate in order to do less. If you delegate in a way so that you can do more, so that your capacity is bigger to be able to act as a true leader and to be able to lead from the front and do things that are productive as a leader, and you use that art of delegation, and you go back to the speed of trust, right? You trust people. So let's say you have a group of salespeople and you notice that one person is highly creative. They're doodling, they know how to do graphic design, maybe they're in school for it, they've always got their headphones in. I recognize stuff like that in people. To me, that's sales marketing, right? That's a person that understands sales and understands marketing. Now they're going to run my social media page for my team. So it's find those little things and then delegate. You have people that can overlap and they can do a lot, go above and beyond what you think.
I love that. And it really does become that delegate so you can do more, because now you've got somebody managing your social page and now you're giving them a chance to grow. So as a team, you're actually able to produce more rather than pull in the reins and say, no, you fit this cookie cutter model. How do you walk me through that? Because the fact that you're able to get that kind of performance and offer that level of trust to new people that are brand new on your team, how do you actually do that? How do leaders get over that hurdle to where that they can show that level of trust?
Yeah. I think you need to ask yourself, what are they really going to break? Like, we're so worried about something functioning properly or perfectly. We often miss out on just the action of it. Like, just do it, just let it happen. They're not truly going to break something. And that's where the mentoring opportunities actually come in. If you're sitting down and you're trying to train somebody or talk at them, very little of that's going to be retained anyway. So, how about help them stand up and then they bobble around and they learn to walk. And then eventually they're walking quickly and then they're jumping and then they're jumping on furniture. And they're not really going to break anything. Just let them try. And then when they do start to break something or when something starts to go off the rails, that's where you gently help them and correct them and mentor them. It's like, that's to me, we're going to achieve our mission regardless of who stays or who goes. We would love for them to stay, but if they're here, I ask them, like, where do you want to be? 2 years, 3 years, 5 years, overall, where do you want to be? I want to be a VP of sales. Okay, cool. Let's put VP of sales up on this board here, and then let's put BDR down here at the bottom. What are all of the things in between that you need to learn in order to be an effective VP of sales? And I want you to go and study and build that list and go tell me, like, what is required of a VP of sales or a director of sales or whatever in order for you to make that move. So then they come back and they say, here's what I found. Here's all the things. Here's all the differences between a BDR and a VP of sales. And then I say, okay, great. Here's the first stage, is that we need to get you to an AE and an account executive. And here's all the things that you need to know as an account executive to get to the next stage, which is a manager or a lead or a senior account executive. Here's all the things that you need to learn to get to a director level. And then we help them. This goes back to systems. So it's like, what do you want to earn? Work your way backwards. I want to earn $500,000 this year. Cool. You got to make calls in order. So start at the end, work your way back.
I love that approach. And this puts so much more meat on the bones when you said earlier, as far as how you help manage people's expectations right from the get-go, and then how you hand them responsibility and trust. And this is them actually crafting out how they're going to advance their career, and you playing a pivotal role. So it's not just you as boss and as leader, but it's you as career coach. And you're pulling so much of that from them. Let me ask you, because you've been in sales so long and you've got so much experience there, you've been in sales leadership, looking down the road a little bit, put on a little bit of your prediction hat here. And what kind of opportunities do you see coming down the road for sales? We talked about AI earlier, all these different tools. What kinds of things do you see coming down the road for people that are also aspiring to be like you?
Yeah, I'm going to say something that might surprise you, but that people for the next 10 to 15 years, maybe longer, there's going to be this phase where people are fatigued by AI. I think they're going to be fatigued by the spam emails, the spam calls, the chat bots. As human beings, as we are evolving, eventually we might evolve to the point where in-person contact is not as necessary to our biology as it is now.
Right.
But in the next 15, 20 years, I think that's still very much part of who we are.
That's part of it's just part of what we crave, right? It's part of being human. You
Yes, it's
can't
why
replace that connection tomorrow with a well-crafted text message or something like that. We still
I,
crave what we crave.
absolutely. And I think we crave it even without knowing we crave it. I think if we look at the depression, we look at suicide, we look at all of the results of not having connection, and not good. They're not. So the face-to-face human connection, I think, is the biggest opportunity for us to play nicely with AI and some of these tools, which is why we love outside sales and field sales and service. We love this category because people want and need human connection. And if we can facilitate that, like we see tools as a facilitation where we're not replacing it. That might be true down the road, but today humans need each other. We Gamify, myself, our mission is to be involved in the facilitation of human beings connecting with each other and offering products. You know, sales is the best profession in the world, in my opinion. You can earn the most money. You can have these human interactions.
I actually loved everything about that answer because we talk a lot internally. We approach that kind of from a different angle. You're on the sales front, I'm on the marketing front. Obviously, those two overlap greatly. And every
Absolutely.
other blog post, every other YouTube video is, oh, 95% of you are going to be replaced and all this kind of stuff. And counterintuitively, I actually believe, just like you do, that the desire in a world of fake, the desire for the human touch is actually going to increase. Not just in sales. I think you make a fantastic case for it there, but even in marketing. We can use these tools to maybe create a little bit more time for ourselves on some of the things we hate to do. Hopefully, that's where it gets applied first. But this
Yeah.
creates an opportunity for more human touch than ever, for more of
Yeah.
these kind of conversations between people like you and I. And I think in this world, that is going to be craved like oxygen, as ones and zeros are in ads. We're just flooded with this tsunami of noise. So I actually really resonate with that. Let me ask you this, and you talk all the way from your twin girls, is that right? 8 years old,
Yeah.
watching them and your career and coaching people that you work with and helping them propel their career. What personal advice do you have for entrepreneurs, for sales leaders that you could leave with them?
Put your oxygen mask on first. I facilitate some men's groups, and it gets me a little bit emotional because I'm watching what a lot of people are going through right now. And we are starting to see in a lot of businesses, self-care is seen as selfish. And I work a little bit in the energy world, meaning in Reiki and some other things that I think it's really powerful to be able to connect in a way and to have self-care to where we are just healthy individuals. Like before we get to the team, before we get to being leaders, before we get to being a good dad or a good wife or a good founder, is it's what are we doing for ourselves? The reason we do that and the reason I feel like that's so important is that it addresses the ego. And if we go too much into the ego, into the pride, and sometimes even competition drives it, then we're less in here. We're not serving anybody. We're not serving our teams. We're not serving our companies. We're not serving our families. And so, my advice for myself and for others is just to really take good care of yourself so that you can operate without pride and ego. If you can operate in that way, not only will you save other people's lives, but you'll probably save your own. Like you'll probably end up having a much more fulfilled, better, happier, incredible life. And that's going to translate into everything else that we just talked about, the business, the marketing, and all, and which is a blast. And it's so much fun and it's so good. Take good care of yourself. And then it's going to expand out from you.
I absolutely love that. You may have just shattered some stereotypes about sales as far as they're coin operated and it's go and it's achieve and it's compete and it's get that expensive car. But instead you're saying, no, put the oxygen mask on, take care of yourself. Authentic advice that I think people will resonate with at a very human level. And I find that to be just a really fresh breath of air. How does somebody get started on that? What do you see like the first step towards putting that oxygen
Yeah.
mask on? How do they do that?
Yeah. What is oxygen, right? It's breath. The first thing that I did to get myself grounded, which is really what it is. And you can find every kind of way. Like you might be grounded in nature, you might be grounded by being out with friends, you might be grounded by the work that you do or the effort that you put in, books that you read. For me, it started with breath. It started with actual breath work, which is, they call it breath work for a reason because it is work when you actually do it. There's some different early teachers out there like Wim Hof. You can go and find some things online. But to really get centered, the first thing you should do is just start there. Just start by breathing, start by grounding yourself, recentering yourself. We enter this life with breath and we leave this life with our last breath. And so why not use that as the first step of this is where we get centered. Just breathe, even if it's just taking some deep breaths in the morning, go and get some sunlight. And then from there, the self-care goes into very personal areas, right? Where it's like, what do you personally need? Is that exercise? Is that knowledge? Is that time with your family? Is that more harmony in your life? And I use the word harmony instead of balance because life is often not balanced. But it's like, where can I find harmony? If I'm maybe working too much and I'm neglecting some things with my family, I need to get that harmony back with them. And so start with your breath, start with yourself, and then it's going to be a personal journey. Figure it out for yourself and then take those steps.
I love that. You painted a nice picture earlier about really putting that mask on and centering ourselves there, but then you gave us the first step for that. And I can attest to that. I go out on Sundays and do a little trail run behind my house. And I'll tell you what, here's my reset moment. And it comes right down to that breath. I'll pass the same patch of sage and I strip off a few leaves, I smash it in my hand, and then hold it up to my nose, and then just deep breaths in and then out. And it just resets my mind. And so I really couldn't recommend what you've just described more. If people want to reach out to you, they want to sign up for your guru newsletter or whatever it is you're pumping out there to fill people with all this wisdom. If not, you got to start one. No, if people want to connect
Thank
with you
you.
personally or they want to connect with Gamify, what's the best way for them to do that?
Yeah, I'm Jess Reagan official on Instagram. And Gamify, you can find us Go Gamify on Instagram as well, or gogamify.com. And we have a podcast that we post to our Instagram page, or you can find it on Spotify or whatever. It's Here to Win is our podcast. And yeah, go check out our website. And I will say one last plug is that come do a demo with us. Come check out the product. Come and see what it's all about. We are so much more than a knocking tool. There's a lot of knocking tools out there, and I want to make that clear is that we are a sales performance tool and a command center and so much more. So yeah, get in touch with us and do a demo.
I love it. Check out Gamify. Go to gogamify.com. Check out their tools. Thanks so much for joining the podcast today.
Thank you so much for your time, Todd. It's been amazing.
I love it. Thanks everybody for joining, and we'll see you next on the Snowball Effect. Have a good one.